Marco,
Sean,
it's quite a week.
which one? These or the one before?
Well, both actually,
Exactly.
but yeah, so many people, so many conversations, so many recordings last week, and
Yeah,
this week we get to produce it all,
yeah.
and then also get a chance to look back. You and I are both writing a recap, but we're also hearing from some of our partners from the conference and getting a view from their lens of what's
Yep.
going on.
Yeah. And I was actually, Sean, thinking about that when I was writing the recap, looking at all the conversation. And the last one we did, me and you, right before we left San Francisco back to LA, you said, and this is it for RSA conference. And then I'm like, no, it's not. We've been working on RSA conference content
Exactly.
for the past, for this week too, as well. So, and we're catching up with people, getting the pulse of what happened there. And, what's the feedback? So, Sean, I know you know Rob personally, so I'm going to let you bring it to the
All right.
to
It's
the
yeah,
conversation.
it's a true pleasure to have Rob Clyde on. Rob and I go way back to a big yellow company many moons ago, and had a lot of fun there, and saw an industry grow and change drastically into what it is now. And it's been fun to watch. And Rob, it's great to see you, and great to
Yeah,
have
no,
you on the
I'm
show.
thrilled
And
to be here, Sean. It's
thrilled to
great
know
to
you're still
reconnect. I
working
really
with
enjoyed
the
those
team at
years we worked
ISACA.
together. And Marco,
And
it's a pleasure to be here with you as well.
yep, good stuff. And so we won't. You can go back there if you want to, but maybe just a quick recap of some of the things you've been involved with, Rob, that led you to working with ISACA now,
Yeah. No,
and maybe
I'd be
a
happy to.
description of your
And
current role there, because I think you've had
ISACA is
three
an
roles with
association, so we
ISACA.
all have additional roles outside of ISACA. Everybody, other than the employees of ISACA, there are about 300 employees of ISACA as an association. But I've been doing cybersecurity for a long time. Sean and I got to know each other when I was the CTO at Symantec many years ago, when Symantec was the internet security powerhouse. I've actually been involved with ISACA for over 30 years. And my early involvement was primarily speaking at ISACA events, and gave many keynotes, got to know the organization very well. Started volunteering. One of the reasons I volunteered is I felt like they actually had the staff to help me be successful. Because as volunteers, we have lots of good ideas and thoughts, but we don't necessarily do a lot. And with staff, you can actually get work product done. So did a lot of volunteering, and I was asked to apply for the board of directors. Ended up on the board, served for 9 years. And I'm a past chair. I was chair of the board at one particular time. I'm since off the board now, and still serve as an evangelist and a volunteer. Still very involved, and would encourage anyone to be involved with associations like ISACA. If we learn one thing from RSA, it's the importance of continual education. And then, of course, in my day job, I serve on boards of directors of three other companies. One, I'm the chairman of CryptoQuantique, an IoT cybersecurity company, and also heavily involved in post-quantum computing, cryptography, I should say. I'm a board director for Cyberl, an AI native cybersecurity company, big topic at RSA. And then also executive chair of a company called White Cloud Security, which does next generation whitelisting for endpoints.
Well,
You
that's actually
have your
glad
hands
you
full.
glad you mentioned the gap in the industry, and and how to involve people, because that's exactly the conversation
Yeah.
we had on location with you guys. And
Yeah, Jamie Norton,
yeah,
great,
Jamie Norton joined
great
us.
representative.
Yeah, and what I really liked about that, and I love your opinion, was the fact that we try to look at things from different perspectives. So from the people that get into the industry and then they get the education and the qualification, but also what does it mean to get people that are certified and trained and educated when you hire someone from the business perspective, and that what it means overall for the community and the industry. So I love to hear
Yeah. So
your
I always
perspective
have
on
those
that, and
kind of
maybe if you had
conversations,
those
as you
kind of
might imagine.
conversations when you were at
One of the things
at
that always
RSA.
comes up, as you can probably tell, I'm a little older. I actually started
I
doing
figured.
cybersecurity before it was cyber, before we had the internet. So I go pretty far back. And people always ask me, Rob, for career advice and what they could do to move forward in their career. And one of the things I always suggest is to make sure that you have something besides just your relationships at work with your employer. Everyone needs something in their profession that they are part of. And an organization like ISACA is crucial for that. You could choose other associations. I don't really care, but find something you can get passionate about, get involved. At the very least, the networking will help you. It's amazing. I've spoken at many ISACA chapters, and I tell people this. I sometimes ask, how many of you have your current job because of someone else in this chapter? And almost always half the hands go up. So that tells you how important it is and crucial it is. And the certifications are key because they demonstrate that you actually have a body of knowledge that is pertinent to what your employer might be looking for. So many employers, once you've been in the workforce for a few years, value the certifications more than your college degree. So they quickly become that important. I would also suggest one of the things we discovered at ISAC, and I talked to many people, there's a lot of burnout happening in cybersecurity. In fact, we found in one of our surveys that 66% reported more burnout this year than last year. And CISOs are especially feeling this. And being part of something outside of your employer, and continuously learning is, I think, one of the primary ways to combat burnout. It isn't actually just get more budget, get more this, get more that, because if you think about that, that's not always under your control. So you're having these things descend upon you, and you can easily start to feel a bit of a victim and a bit of burnout. I always suggest take back control. It's your career. It's your decision to be part of this profession. Make continuous learning part of your life. Demonstrate it through certifications and also maybe even by speaking on the subject. And this is a great way to combat burnout, because by having things that excite us and that we're passionate about and we believe in, it can make some of the drudgery of the day-to-day work seem a little less.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually had a good
Yes,
chat
good
with
friend of mine. I
another
spoke to
shared
him as
friend and
well.
former colleague, Mr. Brown, Tim Brown. Um, yes, yes. And I think what I'll say is for me, the definition of burnout can mean different things depending on who you are and what role you have. And the role of a CISO, the pressure may not be burnout in terms of I'm working a lot of hours and doing more than my job tasks call for. In my opinion, it also means you're taking on responsibility and may not have all the support you need to
Yeah,
uphold the
yeah. Well,
responsibility,
Tim's actually,
and that can cause
yeah. I mean, Tim's actually a
issues,
good example.
right?
Tim Brown,
That
uh,
and things
and
more
I'm
than just
giving
being
public
tired and
information,
burnout.
so there's nothing secret here, but was sued personally by the SEC. So the SEC didn't just sue SolarWinds, but sued him personally. We've had a few examples of others being targeted by the government. You could argue whether fairly or unfairly, and I think that largely this is a mistake, because I think it has a tremendous effect when you have the power of the US government aimed at you individually, and has a huge chilling effect on our profession. I would just ask, if you know that the federal government is going to uh, uh, ask in discovery for all of your internal documents, emails, et cetera, and go through it with a fine tooth comb, looking for any examples where you might have mentioned concerns about internal vulnerabilities, practices, risks, things that could be improved, and then hold that against you personally. Why would you ever discuss problems internally? And so it has a huge chilling effect. And I think Tim's actually a good example of that. I think we need to be careful that we don't, in the effort to get a win for the government, that we don't actually end up causing a huge negative effect on our ability to have robust internal discussions about risks, problems, concerns, And yes, you can't have an internal discussion without documentation. And if nobody dares write anything down or send an email without legal advice, wow, the bad guys are going to win really fast because we just won't be able to move quick enough.
Yep. Yeah. It's yeah, we've had many conversations on this topic, and it's yeah, sad state of affairs, I think. And I guess perhaps there's a connection to the role of ISACA in the community to help us be better prepared, not just with
Yeah.
the technical skills, but with
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, one of the
the
reasons to
team skills
volunteer,
and
if
the
you feel
operating
like me,
skills and everything
volunteer
that
for
comes along with
ISACA.
it.
We actually have a government advocacy group. And one of the beauties of an association is we represent the profession, and we can represent the profession with the US government, with the European Union government. You can get involved. You can be a volunteer. You can help to guide them so that in our effort to regulate or perhaps even do enforcement action, it is balanced and has input from the profession. Not just from government officials. And most government officials love to hear from organizations like ours. So I would highly encourage people to get involved and pick an area that makes sense to you, whether it's working on a white paper or something, as you can hear from me, quite passionate about, even maybe meeting with government officials. And I could never do that on my own. As good as I think maybe my career has been by myself, it's probably not likely to occur. But with the power of
Yeah.
an organization like ISACA, we can really make a difference.
Yeah, let's take actually this last couple of minutes of this conversation to kind of know what kind of
Yes.
feedback you guys got as ISACA from this event. I mean, you personally, some of the conversation you had. I know ISACA was releasing a poll for quantum computing. You're actually
Yeah.
involved into
So
that.
yeah, I'm glad you
But
asked.
also, yeah, what kind of
So
conversation
as you
happened at the
all know,
booth and
and
on,
I'm
on the
not going to spend
floor?
all my time talking about this, AI and agentic AI in particular were huge themes, and deservedly so. And I'm, as you can tell, I'm part of a board for an AI cybersecurity company. But I always pay close attention to the cryptographers panel, and I saw it as a confirmation of our decision at ISACA prior to RSA. Rather than doing a whole bunch of research on AI, we elected to do something counter to that and did research on the threat of quantum computing and released the poll based on that. And I was thrilled that the cryptographers panel, which I always think is probably the leading panel, where real thought leaders, deep thought leaders, because frankly, without cryptography, we have nothing. The internet cannot function. We have nothing. Everything else that you see at RSA is nothing without strong cryptography. And those people clearly indicated they were worried that we were not advancing fast enough with the move to the new NIST algorithms and hybrid post quantum cryptography or quantum resilient algorithms or hybrid algorithms. It felt we're being too slow and we're not paying attention to the risk. And that's exactly what we found at ISACA. And the conversations I had with people were, yes, we know it's an issue. And many were like, yeah, but quantum computing is so far out there, we're not really doing anything. And I think both the poll and the cryptographers panel showed problems with that. The problem is our poll showed 62% understood that quantum computing could break the internet. Like everyone, we're all divided on how long we think before that day comes. We call it Q Day. Uh, when will Q Day come? It's a big debate. If there's a breakthrough, it could happen very fast. Current course and speed, I believe it's still a ways out there. But this is not Y2K. We don't know the date.
And let's be clear, Rob,
Y2K, we knew
this
the
isn't
exact.
Y2K where nothing happens,
Yeah, exactly. This is a big day.
right?
This is a
And
big
and
day. If this happens
it's
before
also
we are
not
ready,
a
the internet
nothing
is broken.
happens day. Something
Just to be
something
clear,
will
that
happen. Yeah.
means all transactions anybody can read. All every time we interact on a website, anybody can read our emails. digital signatures for our code, everything falls apart. So just imagine you could insert code like any vendor you wanted and have it look like it was signed by that vendor in a heartbeat. And so the basis for security with our current public-private key cryptography is at risk. Good news, NIST has already approved algorithms to replace it. We call it post-quantum cryptography. So what we found with our poll is people knew the risk. They even knew the problem of harvest now, decrypt later, that the cryptographers panel addressed quite thoroughly, where people are collecting encrypted data that they can't decrypt and are keeping it against the day when they'll have a powerful enough quantum computer to decrypt it. If they already have the data now, it doesn't matter if you're protected against it in 10 years. They already stole the data, and some data lasts forever. Not all data is sensitive forever, but some data is sensitive forever. And so this issue of moving quickly to post-quantum cryptography and planning on it is huge. So our people know about this. 56% in the poll knew about harvest now, decrypt later, and considered it a risk. Even 34% thought the issue of getting IoT devices upgraded so they could handle post-quantum computing threat, or I should say handle PQC well, was an issue. Here's the rub. We know about the risk. Largely the community does. But only 5% are planning to do anything about it in the near term. Almost nobody has plans or a strategy. Only 7% were familiar with the new NIST algorithms in any detail. 44% admitted they had never heard of them. So this is exactly what the cryptographers panel at RSA was talking about. I had many other conversations with which is like, yeah, we really got to get our hands around AI, and we're learning about it, and there's so much happening there, but we're kind of ignoring the threat of quantum computing and the call to action that we need to have. We need to be getting ready for Q Day now, not waiting. And that clearly is not what our profession, based on the poll, is focused on. We've got a disconnect between understanding and action.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems to me like IPv6.
Yes, everything kind of still works. But unlike with IPv6, you weren't going to have a day when the internet was
kind
broken.
of still works, but it's different in that sense. Right. Exactly. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but perhaps there is because quantum compute is a bit mysterious, and there are very few, if any,
Yes.
I'm sure there are, but very few places to go and play with quantum, unlike AI, right? So I think for me, that's why AI gets a lot of attention, because it is visible. There's an interface you can interact with and play around and become familiar with it. And because of its mysteriousness and lack of availability, I think it becomes difficult to take some first steps. But I guess this is where I want your confirmation. You don't need to know quantum to know the NIST.
Yeah, so
to
really
stuff.
understand quantum computing well, you need to be a quantum physicist. So having said that, we can get a working understanding of it. And from a cybersecurity perspective, it's simple enough to know there's an algorithm out there called Shor's algorithm that will defeat the public-private key encryption like RSA that we use today. It'll defeat the ones based on logarithms as well. This is an algorithm. It is not a theory that needs to be proven. It works. It's already been implemented on a small scale on quantum computers. So the only question now is when a quantum computer will be powerful enough to break the key sizes of today's public-private key cryptography. And unlike certain other types of issues, simply increasing the key size will not, once a quantum computer is large enough, will not be enough to protect us. So that's why NIST got involved over 10 years ago. Mathematicians know this is a problem. The people in the cryptographers panel know this is a problem. And they also, fortunately, it took us some time, but fortunately, we've gone through the whole process of vetting these, and we now have algorithms that are not based on things like the problem of factoring a large semi-prime number into two the two prime numbers, which takes millions of years on conventional computers, could take seconds on a quantum computer in the future, thanks to the nature of how quantum computers work. They don't work with zeros and ones. They work with qubits, which can be 0 and 1 both at the same time. And the probability of them being 0 or 1 both at the same time is infinite, which means the power of a qubit is infinite. And that does start to blow our minds. And it is hard to program a quantum computer right now without a deep knowledge of quantum physics. Having said that, I will just ask a simple rhetorical question. While it may take a long time for quantum computing to be used for many applications today, it's kind of application by application. I predict we'll have a few applications that work, and we have some today, and most don't, and we use them for classical computing. But because of this risk of breaking the internet and an algorithm called Shor's algorithm that already works, there's even an algorithm called Grover's algorithm for symmetric key, not quite as good, not the same speed up, but still a risk, shows the risk. What do you think the world is going to happen? Do you think governments like China, the United States, and others are going to wait until quantum computers are really easy to use to implement Shor's algorithm? No, they're not. They're actively working on it now. So we also have to realize that the date when quantum computers are in wide use is a very different day than Q Day. I hope that's clear. That Q Day could come much earlier than when all of us are using quantum computers.
What I like to say
about
this is
I understand, but the real simple thing is we got to move. We got
at the same time.
At the same time. No, I know it's no, absolutely. I mean, jokes apart, is not sci-fi anymore. We are there. We do talk to companies and other people during the event at RSA conference, RSAC, about this, and it's like it's again, it's not the future, is the if anymore, is the now. So I'm glad that organizations like ISACA are on it. They're doing polls. They're ahead of the game. They're included in their training, and we got to think about all of that, about mental health, about all the things we talked about here. And that's also why we do go to conferences. We get together, we bring the community, and we think about the future together. So, Rob, really nice meeting you. Glad you got to reconnect with Sean. Obviously, these are conversations that could go forever, but we have a little bit of a limited time here. But the conversation is not ending now. We are willing. We're looking forward to
Great.
talk
I look
much
forward
more
to
with
it.
ISACA and have more conversation, hopefully with you as well.
Yep. Yeah. Good to see you, Rob. Keep up the good work, my friend. And thanks to ISACA for being part of our coverage, and to the community that's driving cybersecurity profession forward in a meaningful, positive way. And so thank you all for listening, watching. Stay tuned for more from ISACA. We actually have a webinar that'll be announced and available to watch soon. So stay tuned for that as well. And of course, stay tuned to the rest of our coverage from our RSAC conference.